You know, my brother was heir to the family fortune. He's gone now. Do you remind me of him? He always came first. Even at dinner.
That's what she said!
Well, it's finally here, and it feels like I just started my channel when Ubisoft first announced that they were working on a Star Wars game, and after the lukewarm reception to the Battlefront games that I think I can admit they aged like a fine wine with the DLCs that came out afterwards, and the fantastic Jedi series that Respawn did, Massive Entertainment, the developers behind the Division series, and Ubisoft got to have a crack at their own game set in the Star Wars world with Star Wars Outlaws, and thanks to Ubisoft ANZ for providing me with early access to Outlaws. But rather than doing a traditional video review on Outlaws though, I thought I'd do something a little bit different and list the top 5 things that Star Wars Outlaws gets right, because there are some things that Outlaws does fantastically. This also isn't a Star Wars game we've seen since the House of Mouse purchased Star Wars 2, and Outlaws provides something different. It also goes without saying, but I won't be going into spoilers for this video, so if you're wanting to know some gameplay details and some cool things that Outlaws gets right, well, you don't have to worry about spoilers.
That's good.
Unlike the Hutts. With them, what you see is what you get.
One of the key gameplay components with Star Wars Outlaws is managing the spinning plates that are the 4 different crime syndicates, with each faction in a constant war with each other, and obviously, if you're a fan of the Star Wars universe, most of these gangs will be familiar.
This is the last horseman. Who is this?
This is Flaming Dragon!
Firstly, we've got the Pikes, most recognisably from, say, the Book of Boba Fett, which, as a sidebar, I will admit it had some cool moments here and there, like Cad Bane, but they're one of the first factions that we come into contact with, and they have a decent foothold in the game. We've then got Crimson Dawn introduced in Solo: A Star Wars Story, which I think might be my second favourite Disney Star Wars film, because I actually didn't mind it. But Crimson Dawn is run by Lady Qi'ra, who is Han Solo's first love, I guess we could say, but it's Emilia Clarke's character in the Solo film. Then there is the Ashiga clan, a crime syndicate who were created for Star Wars Outlaws, and their base of operation, or homeworld, is Kijimi, which is the planet from The Rise of Skywalker. I don't think there are many people that liked that film, but this clan has more or less a bit of an insect hive and a queen mentality to it. And finally, we've got the Hutt cartel, obviously run by Jabba the Hutt, and if Han Solo being frozen in carbonite wasn't enough evidence, I wasn't keen on pissing them off in any chance that I got.
Wait a minute, who's that? I know that laugh. It's the 7-Up guy.
It's not the 7-Up guy.
But there are main story missions and a endless supply of side missions in the game where you'll accept jobs for, say, Crimson Dawn to steal an item from an Imperial outpost, only for the Pikes to offer you more money if you steal it for them, gaining better reputation with the Pikes, but you'll also piss off Crimson Dawn by doing this. If you gain favour with a gang, they'll give you access to discounts to their vendors, access to their restricted areas like inside of a Pike outpost, and their faction leader will give you rewards for having certain levels of reputation with them. For example, get full reputation with the Pikes, they'll give you an Imperial officer uniform, which can be used to better avoid detection when you're sneaking through Imperial areas. And crime syndicates will give you cosmetic outfits for getting full reputation with them. However, piss off the factions and things change. If you're unfavourable, they will shoot you on sight, and if you've really pissed them off, they will send hit squads after you to take you out.
Should I shoot him gang lion style or execution style?
Listen to your heart.
Having a bad reputation doesn't sound too bad though, but when you're using a speeder and you're going to a mission objective, I had to drive through Pike-controlled territory, and every single Pike that I drove past immediately started shooting at me and sending speeder bikes after me, so it can get a bit hairy. Thankfully though, if you do piss off a faction too much, you can accept some side missions to gain favour with them and then get back in their good books, but at the risk of upsetting other factions. With my playthrough, I started off with the Pikes because I wanted that Imperial outfit, but as soon as the Hutts were facing off against the Pikes, I immediately sided with the Hutts. But the game constantly has you fighting with rival factions and gaining favour and hate with them, and Massive Entertainment have done a pretty wicked job in creating this tug-of-war style of element in a Star Wars game.
Imperial squads using nothing but their own weapons. I like this guy.
I cannot confirm the validity of that story.
Star Wars Outlaws takes place between The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, my personal favourite Star Wars film, and I've heard a few of my mates say probably the golden period for a timeline, where the rebels are on the back foot after the Empire crushed them at the Battle of Hoth. But from this, the Empire are a bit more focused on taking out the rebels and letting the crime syndicates just do their thing as long as they don't get in the way, and playing out as an outlaw ourselves as the character of Kay, we have more opportunities to work with the crime syndicate. But why does Star Wars Outlaws work so well set between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi? Well, it's something we've not seen since the fantastic game, book, and toy series Shadows of the Empire, which, yeah, I do need to go back and replay that for the channel at some point. But when walking through cities, especially Imperial-occupied cities, we hear and see stormtroopers shake down civilians for information on the rebels. We hear people at the cantina talk about the rebels escaping Hoth, and there are gangs working with the Empire to further their own interests in the galaxy.
Well, maybe this'll help.
I really don't think I should.
Yeah, you still don't think so?
Obviously too, there are more than a few references to legacy characters here and there, one of which, without going into spoilers, is a cursed booth at the Mos Eisley Cantina, and you can see the blaster scoring on the wall, which I thought was pretty cool. Kay's story too isn't actually too bad. It does feel like there are elements or planets that they needed to use from maybe a Disney perspective for the newer Star Wars films like Canto Bight and Kijimi, but Kay's story and how it is wedged between the two greatest Star Wars films of all time, or, well, the original trilogy I think we can all agree is the best period of time, makes the game a bit more exciting. Seeing Han Solo on Jabba the Hutt's wall is also pretty damn cool, and exploring Tatooine, you better believe I was looking for more Easter eggs, references, and anything else I could find.
And I'll find you.
No, you won't!
But the story of where Outlaws fits into the timeline of Star Wars also works really damn well for my next point too, with that it being an open world game. Now, I know, yes, you can say that Star Wars Jedi Survivor and to some extent Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order were open world games, and while, yes, that is somewhat true, but the planets were a little linear in Fallen Order, and Survivor had Jedha and Kobo, which were, yes, open worlds, but Star Wars Outlaws open worlds legitimately had me impressed. It feels more like an actual open world game, if that makes sense. After the opening prologue that sets up the character of Kay, we're given access to our ship, the Trailblazer, a speeder bike, and we can accept work for the 4 different crime factions. Each faction too has a base of operations located on the relevant planet, and each planet in this game is visually stunning. The Pikes are based out of the new planet created for Outlaws in Toshara, a planet that had me getting a bit of a Red Dead Redemption vibe to it, but it looks like a mixture of Geonosis with sort of the red sand and rocks with elements of grassy terrain nature, a little bit like Naboo. Now, not only is Toshara the headquarters, if you will, for the Pikes in Outlaws, but it's also a planet that is under Imperial control. Crimson Dawn has 2 locations in Toshara fighting against the Pikes, where they've set themselves up on the opposite side of the main city, and they've also got a location on Kijimi opposing the Ashiga clan, who have a protected fortress with turrets everywhere and a fair few guards. As you can guess though, the Hutts are based out of Tatooine, and Jabba's palace is something to marvel at, but also something to be feared at the same time. Now, I won't spoil anything, but the first time I went to Jabba's palace, it was pretty damn intense, wicked as hell, but I was on an edge from the mission I was doing.
Mom! We're on high alert here! I almost killed you right then! You do not even realize!
But out of these 4 planets, 3 of them can be explored by jumping on Kay's speeder and, well, exploring. Kijimi is the only planet where we're basically confined to the city limits, but Akiva, Tatooine, and Ashara provide you with different sandboxes to explore. Akiva is a jungle swamp style of planet with some environmental hazards and some dense jungle, making it sometimes hard to control the speeder bike around some tight turns, but its main city has this jungle overtaking the buildings vibe to it with some pike and hut outposts. Kijimi, well, it's a city really, but the vibe of it being cold outside with snow building on Kay's clothing was a nice touch, and seeing the inside of a cantina on this planet that's full of people just wanting to sort of stay inside and keep warm, it kind of gives a really cool atmosphere to the game. Tashara, as I mentioned, gave me that Red Dead vibe, at least it did to me, but when out exploring on your bike, you'll hear from Imperial channels that pirate treasure has been found and Imperials are on their way to collect. And it's sort of like when you play the Spider-Man game and you get those random crime events that pop up, and you can divert yourself from the path and then take on the treasure from the Imperials. And what's cool too is you can see Imperial ships come in down from the sky and land for these events as well. But by far, my favourite biome is the sand planet of Tatooine, and who would have thought that a planet that's just rocks and sand would be cool?
I like that boulder. That is a nice boulder.
Well, yes, that's all Tatooine really is. The flow of the map, where it goes from the salt flats, where I sort of half expected to see Cad Bane just walk out of some kind of mirage effect, was pretty damn cool, then to follow some paths and trails into canyons, and you make your way out to the Dune Sea, and let's just say I'm not staying out there for long.
What is that thing? We are not going in another mountain today.
But Jabba's palace, Mos Eisley, hell, even sand crawlers and Jawas, dude, it's all rad. Inside Jabba's palace, you can obviously see Han Solo on the wall. You can use Docking Bay 94 for your ship, the Trailblazer, and it's kind of cool walking from the Mos Eisley streets to the docking bay, using and walking through corridors that we never saw in the films, and the cantina is rad. Honestly, I lost a fair amount of time just exploring Tatooine. And that's what Outlaws does really damn well, just like how Jedi Survivor did before it. It's real easy to head out on a mission and then get sidetracked by talking to Jawas, to buying items from them, by accepting a side mission to sneak into a Hutt cartel outpost and to plant a listening device in their gambling rooms. Hell, even just to explore Mos Eisley and Tatooine in general, it's pretty cool. And before anyone asks, yes, I tried to see if I could find Luke's old homestead around as well, and I don't think I could find it anywhere. But unlike Jedi Survivor, there are endless missions to do with crime syndicates. You can walk into cantinas, not just the Tatooine one, but you can walk into a cantina and eavesdrop on a conversation to find out about some hidden treasure floating around in an asteroid field. Kay can find out those tips about those Fathier racers, you know, those giant sort of big-eared horses from The Last Jedi. But you can find tips about those, and then you can go place bets at basically a betting casino and clear up, because credits are a proper thing in this game.
Money, money, money.
You can purchase new outfits for Kay, like a pair of pants that will give her a buff, like moving quicker when she's crouched, or a belt that will allow her to carry more back to healing vials. There's also upgrades for the speeder, like better handling, increased acceleration, a boost ability, the same with the ship, the Trailblazer as well, like increased damage, increased hull and shields. You'll find loads of different resources as well in this game to build these upgrades, or you can simply just purchase the resources too if you want. When you go back to your ship, the Trailblazer, you'll fly from the land up into space, and you can explore the space around a planet. Tashara has a debris field and an Imperial space station in orbit, which obviously you can explore. Tatooine is clear open skies, or clear open space, but you can find opposing gangs caught in a dogfight, and you get the idea. There's things to do in space from, yes, main combat, but there's also just exploration, and the ship controls are basically pulled from Battlefront 2.
That's good.
But being an open world game, there are a variety of ways to approach missions as well. For example, one side mission is to steal a keycard from a Hutt cartel member, but he's hanging out inside an outpost. You can go in loud, shoot up the gangsters and steal the access card, but you will get negative reputation with the Hutt cartel for doing this.
Ooh, that's bad.
However, if you're in their good books, you can walk in through the front gate, take the card as long as no one can really see you, and then walk right out the front door.
That's good.
Now, if it's not too obvious as well, the Empire do play a bit of a role in Star Wars Outlaws.
No shit.
Some missions will have you play as, say, the Hutts, and you need to sneak into an Imperial base, and if you fuck around and find out with the Empire, you will get a wanted level from them. Depending on your crime or why the Empire are after you determines how to get rid of your wanted status. If it's a small crime, then just keep a low profile and wait for the wanted status to go away, a bit like a 1 or 2 star in GTA. But the highest wanted level, you'll need to go out to go find some Death Troopers and clear them out who guard an Imperial officer, and Death Troopers are damn hard to take down, and they slap even harder. But the open world gameplay works great with the setting or vibe or character of Kay, because Kay isn't a Jedi. Obviously, it goes without saying, but you won't be running around with a lightsaber in Star Wars Outlaws. You have no force abilities, there are no mind tricks to have stormtroopers forget that they saw you, no force pull to open up a door from the other side of the room. Kay is a simple human outlaw character who, after the opening prologue, she has just started exploring the universe. As Outlaws is an open world game, and with there being a variety of ways to approach missions, you do sometimes need to be careful and think outside the box. The prologue of the game will teach you how to sneak around without being found, how to use your blaster and set it for stun, how to knock out enemies and sabotage items like alarms so that in case you do get caught, they can't call for help. This is where I think Outlaws does a pretty wicked job in comparison to, say, Jedi Survivor. Now, a reminder for those of you who don't know, but I loved Jedi Survivor and it was my game of the year last year, but in Survivor, its missions are a bit linear. You go into a room, you carve your way through enemies, and it's brilliant for the character of Cal Kestis. Kay, on the other hand, has a blaster, some gadgets and some grenades, and some tools for opening doors and hacking into computers. With this too, she can't really get shot much and she will go down fast if she's out in open combat with no real cover. The best way to describe the overall gameplay for Outlaws, outside of the general sandbox exploration vibe, is a mixture of the Tomb Raider reboots, as there are platforming moments, with a touch of Splinter Cell Blacklist with its stealth elements, and the general third-person shooter elements of The Division, which kinda makes sense as the developers of Outlaws, Massive Entertainment, also did The Division. But as you can change Kay's outfit and upgrade her ship and her speeder, Kay's blaster can also be upgraded too. You'll start off with the standard plasma fire mode, which works as you'd expect. If you fire it too much, you need to wait for it to cool down.
Pretty standard, really.
But then we've got an ion charge, which has a bit of a 50-50 use. 50% of the time it's generally used to provide power to a generator or used for platforming puzzles, but the ion charge also works great for taking out droids, as some crime factions use droids. It'll overload the droids, causing them to explode, which can deal damage to you if you are too close to them, so that's worth noting. But it also drops enemy shields, like say the Stormtroopers' heavy gunners. As you progress, you'll get access to other modes for your blasters as well, like the power shot or the rapid fire mode, that will basically turn Kay's pistol into a bit of an SMG, in that it will fire rapidly, but it deals less damage. But as also Kay is new to the world of the Outlaws and criminal underbelly, she starts off pretty basic. She can throw a punch and she can knock out a guard, but as you explore planets, you can basically befriend characters who will teach Kay new abilities, and even Kay's companion Nix can learn some new abilities too. For example, when you start Outlaws, Kay can pick up and use weapons like the standard issue E11 blaster, the weapon that Stormtroopers carry, and these are temporary weapons that you can use until the ammo has emptied. But Kay can only use general rifles, she can't use anything heavy. But when you make a friend with a mercenary, she will teach Kay how to use the rotary blaster, and they obviously mow down stormtroopers pretty easily. But to unlock these abilities, rather than a traditional skill tree like with what we got in Jedi Survivor, Kay needs to complete small challenges from experts that will teach her the skill. Use quiet takedowns on a guard, Kay will learn how to fast talk, where if you're caught in an area that you shouldn't be in, she'll try and talk her way out of it to give you a bit of an opportunity to take the guard out with maybe a stun shot. Or you can learn an ability for Kay's companion Nix to activate grenades on an enemy's belt, which comes in handy. But whether you decide to go in loud and blast everything, or sneak around avoiding detection, you'll need to slice into terminals with a slicing minigame, which it's kind of like Sudoku meets a guessing random patterns, and probably for me it's the only minigame that's just pick random things until you hack into the computer. It's a bit lost, but Kay can also use a data spike to basically picklock her way through doors and treasure chests. A little bit like how R2-D2 can go into terminals and open up doors and unlock things. But this minigame's really creative because it works on timing, so rather than turning a data spike left or right and waiting for the click like you would in Skyrim when you're lockpicking a door, the data spike goes into a socket and you listen for the beeping that the lock makes, and then you need to match the rhythm and beats for the data spike to open the door. And what kinda works too, and it's a tiny fraction, but it reminded me a little bit of Alien Isolation when you're hacking your way through a door and you can hear that the alien has seen you. But with Outlaws, if you sneak past a guard and you don't take them out, you try to use your data spike to open the door, they can see you doing this and they might just start opening fire. But as I mentioned in my previews for Star Wars Outlaws already, Kay has a Deadeye ability like in Red Dead, or for those of you who play the recent Splinter Cell games, Kay basically has the Execute ability where time will slow down, allowing her to target or ping 3 enemies and take them out with a pretty wicked flourish. Unlike Red Dead though, that will allow you to drink booze to increase your Deadeye or having to knock out enemies to fill the Execute gauge in Splinter Cell, Kay's ability will recharge on adrenaline. So when you're in combat and shooting enemies, her adrenaline will fill up, allowing you to use this ability, but when combat is over, her adrenaline meter will start to drop because, well, she's not getting shot at.
Makes sense.
It is a pretty cool ability and it comes in handy when surrounded by gangsters or Imperials for sure, but it's also the only defense when being chased on a speeder bike, as this is the only way to shoot enemies when you're on your bike. You need to avoid blaster fire, do jumps and boost around, and Kay's adrenaline will fill, and with this you can use this ability to shoot down any speeder bikes that are chasing you, but otherwise you can't actually shoot and drive at the same time. But the gameplay, and in some instances the story elements of Nyx, which is Kay's wicked yet adorable companion, is something truly special.
You first. Oh, better than Brem's fish and grits, huh?
While Cal Kestis has the cute droid companion BD-1, Kay Vess has Nyx, a new species in Star Wars Umbercal, and Nyx is without a doubt one of the best companions I've had in a video game in recent years. Sure, the companions in Mass Effect are great, but they're not the same as a character like Nyx in BD-1 and Dogmeat from the Fallout 4 game. Nyx doesn't only work as Kay's companion who acts all cute and such, but Nyx also acts as the game's best weapon. Now I won't go into the story of Kay and Nyx and how they met, as it's kind of spoilery, but these characters are basically Chewbacca and Han in that they're constantly at each other's side. If you will, with this analogy, Chewbacca is a Rottweiler, or probably better suited a Newfoundland, in that it is huge, loves its friends, but you also don't want to fuck with Chewie.
You think that after what you did to Han in the wilderness...
It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
Where Nyx is more so something like, say, a miniature Schnauzer, and yes, that dog breed does come to mind because I have 2 of them, but they're small, they're invisible in public places to a larger dog, and that's where Nyx comes in handy, and that's also where the dog analogies stop. But Nyx has a load of different abilities that will help Kay out in combat, stealth, and just general free roaming through the city. Nyx can be used to steal keycards and credits from people walking around the city.
See that man over there? Huh? He's got keys. Yeah. Go get those keys. Go get them.
If pointed at stormtroopers or gangsters, he can steal their thermal detonators. Nyx can reach places that Kay can't by squeezing through tight corridors or cracks in windows to open doors. Nyx can sabotage alarms so guards can't call for backup or set off explosives. But to summarise, if there's something that Kay can't do, 9 times out of 10, that's what Nyx is for. When sneaking around, Nyx has basically a sense ability where he can highlight enemies around corners or underneath you, but potentially any objects of interest like treasure chests or weapons or materials to pick up like Durasteel and credits and other crafting items. On top of this too, Nyx can distract enemies so guards will basically walk past or around you, letting you sneak past them or quietly knock them out. And he does this by overacting and playing dead, which is pretty damn cute. There are moments though where there might be say 3 enemies around and you're not allowed to cause an alarm, and Nyx can be used to attack enemies which will disable them for a few moments, allowing you to say use a stun shot on one guard, knock out the other one, while Nyx holds up the last one and waits for you to take them out.
Go get him, buddy.
He's also pretty damn useful in combat. If you're stuck and pinned down by enemies, you can ask him to run out and grab a Bacta vial to heal yourself. You can also ask him to grab a blaster and bring it to you or to set off nearby explosives. It's all pretty cool stuff and he comes in handy. Nyx as well, as I mentioned, can be upgraded, but he can be upgraded with food. Yes, food. There are mini games on each planet where you can buy food from a street vendor and they will give Nyx a buff or a perk. For example, the first meal I got, Nyx would upgrade him that if enemies threw a grenade at me, Nyx would kick them away, which actually does come in handy a few times. Or his distraction ability can then distract multiple enemies at once. But Again, without going into spoilers, there is a moment in the game where you won't have Nix, and not having the ability to sense who's around you or go grab a weapon when you're pinned down becomes a real challenge that you need to work around because you're kind of used to using Nix. But I also think that Nix is a better character than BD1.
No, I like it. This is brilliant, but I like this.
Now, while BD1 is cool and totally has his uses, BD1 feels like an extension of Cal as he's always on your shoulder, he shoots out a healing sim, where Nix feels like a separate character, like how Chewbacca is a separate character from Han Solo. Oh, and for shits and giggles, in Outlaws you can play Sabak as well. It's pretty similar to how like you can play poker in Red Dead, and you can use Nix to cheat for you so he can see what cards your opponents are holding. It's pretty damn cool.
You fucking little bastard!
But these are the top 5 things that I think Star Wars Outlaws gets right. There are a few other items I think that they've also done pretty well in, like the sound design and the voice acting is pretty good, and there are moments in Kay's story with character development that had me properly invested. But if after this video you're still on the fence about Star Wars Outlaws and you're unsure of it, in my personal opinion, Star Wars Outlaws is in the running for my Game of the Year.
No, I don't believe it.
We've got some more story DLC coming on the way too with Wildcard and A Pirate's Fortune, and I think there's some cool areas where we could see Kay move from here. Outlaws is by no means a perfect game, and I will be doing a separate video on things that I think Outlaws gets wrong, but I will go into spoiler territory from there. But honestly, I'm loving my experience with Outlaws. If you're still on the fence, I say try it out for yourself if you can. If not, maybe see if any of your mates have got it and what are their thoughts on the game. But if you're a Star Wars fan, I gotta say, while the TV shows are a real hit and miss, I think the video games just keep getting better and better, and Massive Entertainment and Ubisoft I think have made a pretty damn good game for their first time in the Star Wars universe. But whether your first Star Wars video game was Shadows of the Empire, or you're still wondering why is Lando wearing Han Solo's clothes at the end of The Empire Strikes Back, always remember to play with each other and play with yourself.